Once upon a time in the West, whole groups of people under duress. Nobody knows what planet they're on. Oh, yeah. Then one day, those who were awake noticed coming up on the horizon the possibility of truth coming back into the forefront. Death to the new world order. Death to the new world order. Death to the new world order. Order, I call it. It ain't no order, it's an order. Thanks to high. It's been getting worse. More and more stinking. Just awful. Anti-human. Anti-life. Pro-death. Oh, can't stand it. But there's a shift coming in. There's hope. Hope. Now, I don't know what to say. I know we gotta pray. We gotta pray. Keep praying. The truth comes out.
If you think you're in trouble, you are. If you think you're gonna get away with it, you won't. If you think you're part of the solution, get busy. Because if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Never has there been a more serious time. Never have the stakes been so high. It's the turning point of the entire universe, played out in political, economic, global theater.
Death to the new world order. Death to the new world order. Death to the new world order.
It's not something to sleep through. You're called to the point of decision. Do you live free or on your knees? The tyranny that is engulfing the world has always been. People have been locked up, locked down, cast out. With a world that has so much abundance and opportunity, they had none. For eons, none. Ruthless, cruel dictators and oligarchs stole everything from everyone. They were not content in simply having their own. They wanted to make sure that others had not. They wanted to ensure that others had nothing. And if they knew there was someone prospering somewhere, some distant island or continent, they would load their ships up and go and conquer them and put them into slavery and servitude. Just knowing there was someone free was enough to garner an attack. I hope you understand how evil this whole thing is and understand what you have to do now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Porthole to Justice, the window to the truth. That is Death to the New World Order. Original music by Zeph Daniels, vocals by Patricia Daniels, and love those two. Anyways, welcome. It is June 13th, 2018, and I'm going to get Lotus so she can give us an update on what's going on down there in Arizona, but not just that, regarding the child trafficking in general, and, how we're organizing to try and end child trafficking and human slavery by the year 2020. You can go to human2020.com. You can check out our directives and initiatives, and be a part of the solution. Okay, and you can also join the Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, NWO Freedom Fighters, exclusively on Facebook. Hi, Lotus. Welcome. Welcome to the Porthole to Justice. We are live.
How are you doing today?
I am good. I'm just, wow. Things are kind of hopping, aren't they?
Yeah, I hear, I just got a call today. Word on the street, there's supposed to be a big move on the pedo rings. So I'm hoping on that. We'll see. We'll see.
That's always good news, right?
Yeah, I mean, these are people that have been fighting it for, some of the people that reported it as early as 20, 30 years ago through the FBI are calling me. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that know a lot of things. And I guess the distinction between me and them is, one, I'm younger. They all got to watch everyone get shot, and assassinated when they were trying to expose this 20, 30 years ago. And, I'm not worried about going to my God early. So I don't operate, for personal lucre. So they have a little less, these people that are getting suicided by these hanging from doorknobs, which is what I'm going to say they are. They're in contract with these people. They're in oath. I mean, this is all about the color of law that you choose to be under. And if you choose to be under, Babylonian slave trade law and seek to be a pedophile or a baby trafficker, and you try to change sides and undermine that, and you've got some dirt, they're going to come after you because their oath allows them to do that. I'm not under their oath, and and I'm not trying to make a profit on any of this, so I'm not under their oath in that respect either. So I'm not really in their jurisdiction whatsoever. So it would be unusual for them to try to assassinate people like you and I, but it still could happen. Well, but I don't
for the record, I'm not into sexual asphyxiation or and I'm not suicidal, everyone.
Me neither. I don't believe in suicide, mostly because I wake up every day and I'm blessed by the bounty that I've been given by Goddess, and regardless of my plight, I've always been very blessed in my life, and no matter the day. So, and that's just how I was raised. So that's the faith I was brought with. So, but I would never do that. So, and all my friends know that, and everyone around me knows that if ever I were to come to a demise prematurely, other than very old age, which I tell people I'm going to live to be like 165. So, if I were to die before that, they would, and it looked suspicious, they would definitely know that it was, not of my will. So, I mean, that's something that's to be said. But there are a lot of people, and we talked about this. I think it was I was talking about this with you, is that I'm starting to kind of consider, the Revelation concept of suddenly all these people are going to be missing in Revelations. That there's going to be taken to God. Well, if the God they're following is Satan, there's going to be a lot of people gone, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's all about allegory and metaphor. How it's applied depends upon your perspective and whether you're in the paradox or out of the paradox. Because to me, being in Revelations and having a lot of people disappear into what the presumptive God is of these people is one way or the other, we're going to be separated from these evil people. And I think that that's really the greater picture of Revelations, is that we are going to be separate from them physically. And as we've talked about it, I think it's going to be in the hundreds of thousands of people that are brought in to this criminal conspiracy, just the ones within our borders. I'm not even talking about the international actions. And I think this is going to be a huge, huge historical cleansing, total shift in the way we think. I mean, it's definitely going to be historical. It's epic, historically epic.
Well, I talked about a little bit. I made a post about, activating the game changers out there. So many of us have been operating in so many different layers of lies and black magic that is oppressing humanity. And, they're spraying us with biologicals. They're spraying us with heavy metals to mutate our immune systems, because we come into this realm, this earth, as whole beings, trans-dimensional human beings, and the only way that they can pull this layer of darkness and oppression over our eyes is by mutating our immune systems and making us more vulnerable to their systems of oppression and slavery.
Well, they're polluting us. Yeah, they definitely are polluting our minds. They're polluting our waters. We talked about that before, and people need to really perceive. I love St. John, because he says they are not of us; they come through us. He tells you that evil is only able to come into this world through the acts of men and women, and that is the only way that evil has been allowed to be pervasive. It's seemingly pervasive in the modern era. But then again, we've been working on this for a couple thousand years. But people just need to conceive. We've had a lot of science fiction, put in our minds. But let's perceive that these are energy entities that are able, just like body snatchers, that are able to infiltrate us through mental fractures that the world around us creates.
Well, let's talk about. Let me just touch on that briefly, if you don't mind. Mental fractures, disassociation, things. These types of conditions are caused by trauma, sexual trauma, that causes that. It actually allows for evil to enter into this realm, because disassociation makes you more vulnerable to having an entity attached to you and come through you, right?
Yeah, I mean, from all the research that I've read about that, that's how that's what all the work under Mengele and stuff were to figure out how to physically monarch people by introducing extreme violence and sexual things and to them at a young age. That's the problem with circumcision. It actually is a monarching event. It changes the mind of a child. They've now done CAT scans and MRIs. I think it's MRIs, where they show that boys pre-circumcision have a completely different brain conformation than post-circumcision. Like immediately, that the pain that is affected by such acts. And I'm not talking about the ones where they have the little bell. I'm against circumcision in all respects, because that's how God made you. And you can't tell me that God made men defective, and that the way that the foreskin is put forth on a male child is not exactly how God intended, and that doctors have decided that it's unnecessary. That's like saying if doctors said you didn't need your thumb, would you all go cut them off? Because that's what they're saying. God gave you a thumb, God gave you a foreskin, leave it on. But and it serves a purpose somehow. And how would we know? We've had it lied to for so long by these medical doctors about what it is and doesn't do. But in any course, when they circumcise a male child in a violent fashion, which I personally have seen it done, and I had a hard time not punching the people, to be honest with you. I knew immediately it was repugnant and abhorrent, and I couldn't believe that these people did it all the time. That they could swallow that, the screams of this child. I mean, they strap them down. They strap them down and grab their foreskin with forceps on either side and pull it forward. This is all without anesthetic, folks. And then they take what's called a guillotine cut. And if men have ever smoked cigars, they know what a guillotine cut is. And they literally cut, without anesthetic, the foreskin of a small baby with no anesthetic, with a guillotine cut. Just smack it. While he's strapped down, all four legs, arms back, feet down. These are disgusting behaviors of vile people. There's no person of logic and reason that can watch that and say that that's a justifiable act, and that it isn't detrimental and painful, excruciatingly painful to a small boy. That monarchs every man we have in this society. And I bet if you did a study on uncircumcised versus circumcised men, you would find a propensity to be more violent, to be less emotionally connected, to be less sincere, feeling-wise, to have issues with being able to be in touch with their feelings, more dissociated. And who would blame them? Imagine if you cut the clitoris head off of a small girl with no anesthetic, which they do, That's what they do in African countries, which, by the way, is one of the things that our illustrious DOJ dude, I can't even think of his name anymore. I'd like to wipe him off my head, out of my mind. Sessions has decided will not be used as a justification for immunity and asylum. So now he's saying that if young women who have been sexually mutilated or come from a society or a country where they don't want to have their genitalia mutilated as adults, they do this as adults with no anesthetic. Now imagine if it was done with a child. That we're no longer going to take in women who are seeking asylum from being brutalized and mutilated in domestic violence. See, they want to classify it as domestic violence. It's not domestic violence. That's institutionalized warring against a woman and child. So now you have a DOJ guy who wants to eliminate those as a reason for applying for asylum. Now, me personally, I'll take every woman and child that wants to come here. The dudes, you can leave at the border. But I think that America should take any mother and child that wishes to come here seeking asylum from violence and domestic.
Lotus, if I can just interject, we have a large part of the population that just takes on for face value that this bill to separate women and children was passed. It's Trump's administration, which I guarantee you, none of them have taken the time to research Senate Bill 18, which was submitted by Senator Pan in December of 2015 to Congress. It was passed in 2016, and this was under the Obama administration, not the Trump administration. So Trump, as we all know, Trump has actively been working to reverse a lot of these bills. However, I don't think people are actually taking the time to research this material. They're just believing what they're fed by these the certain individuals that lean left. They're just taking it at face value and going, yeah, it's the Trump administration.
Well, I think when you say certain individuals, I think you mean the ignorant. Okay, because if you and additionally, those people also don't know, which even the people who do know about that particular aspect of legislation being at the hands of Democrats. The situation happening out the border is 100% on the Democratic watch. They did it. In the whole course that allowed them to do that come 100% from the Democrats. Okay, from Hillary Clinton on up. This goes from when Bill Clinton. Now, that doesn't mean that they weren't set up by some Republicans, such as George Bush Sr. and all that stuff. But the prevailing statutes that we're dealing with now, including all their vacancies, were perpetuated for 8 years under Democratic DOJ that allowed the abuses and the repugnance of this to fester and to create bad case law. Because, as I'm saying, they additionally don't understand how you can have all that legislation all you want, and then you have parents and attorneys trying to impose the federal mandates of even Title IV on these states, and the courts are giving them a pass to kidnap and saying they're immune through the Rucker-Feldman doctrine. which is a repugnant construct in the way that they're applying it to states being exempt from being brought to the bar.
This is absolute. I know, but this is absolute blatant propaganda by members of Congress in the state of California. Absolutely blatant propaganda.
Absolutely. I mean, these people. Well, either that or they're again ignorant. They're just regurgitating the talking points because they don't take the time. And that's a vacancy for everybody. I mean, you have an obligation as a citizen of a republic to know the law. I mean, you do. Ignorance of law being no excuse. You go before anybody that you have surrendered jurisdiction to, and you don't know the laws that you surrender to. Guess what? That's on you in the law. And you have a lot of people misquoting the law. I mean, I was just on the show, this weekend talking about law, and you're not allowed to fly a foreign flag.
Oh,
well, guess what?
By the way, I need you to email me a link of that show so I can post it to Social Media News Network.
I got to find it. I think someone has it. But, I mean, for example, you're not allowed to adulterate the United States flag. Okay, the blue line flag, that's a crime. That's a federal crime. When the police unions, which are foreign servants, they are servants to the foreign bar union. So they're by all accounts, under the law, a foreign occupying army for foreign agents. When they took the American flag and adulterated it, that's a federal felony. I don't think people understand some basics of law that are open, clear violations. And in doing so, and flying a flag that is not the United States flag, is actually a declaration of war. So, you've got people that are just, I mean, that's the problem. As in, we'll go back to St. John. He says lawlessness is a sin. And that the lawlessness come through us to affect lawlessness. So this lawlessness you're seeing is a sin in the eyes of our law. See, lawlessness becomes a sin. A sin of lawlessness means it's a tort of consciousness. It means lawlessness implies you willfully are doing something. So any cop out there who's wearing a little blue line, adulterated United States flag has committed a federal felony. By the code of the flags. See that these are open violations of law, folks, and you're oblivious because you have no concept of the lawlessness that surrounds you.
So Lotus,
you're not supposed to
I know you're following that issue out there in Arizona. Can you give us an update on what's going
yes,
on?
I can. I can tell you that there have been one of the guys, one of the few that has been, I've been working with for a couple of years now when it comes to restoration of the Republic. He's been in D.C. for a couple of days and pretty much ruffling the feathers of the people there as much as I'm ruffling the feathers of the do-nothing militias. And he has basically raised the ire of them enough to, supposedly next week, there's supposed to be a group of 15, I believe, Democratic congressmen. They're supposed to go down and observe the border. Now,
Lotus, are you still with
they're
me?
going to take him to a... Sorry, I had a call coming in. I haven't had a call all afternoon. Anyway, so if whoever's listening, if you're my friend, you just call it. Stop doing it. So we know that they're not going to send them to the nice places, but at least we know they're going to go there. So that's a big plus. We have that. We also have, we've had some national coverage on the fact that there are Border Patrol. There was Border Patrol that was shot in Arizona. These guys need help. And we don't want the military there. We don't need the military. We need the organized militias of the states to support and give ground support in the states proper under the Republic law, under military code of justice to these agents of the border, the local municipalities, the sheriffs, and the cops, the good ones, that are just completely overwhelmed because we are being. I don't think people understand. Your past president, POTUS, Obama, helped the Central South America, all the little Texas, little panhandle there down there. He facilitated a unification of all of those regions under one gang. He helped them collectivize all the gangs into one gang, going around as the Templars. Okay, these gangs are not nice folks. These gangs do human trafficking, baby trafficking, and drug trafficking. they are also set up, if Hillary had won, to invade our southern border with guns, folks. Literally.
Well, Lotus, I have to speak to that because I have to speak to this because I happen to have friends that are Freemasons and Knights Templars, and I don't necessarily think that they're all bad. I think they've been infiltrated. You know.
Well, they all have. But these guys aren't Templars, of our understanding. These aren't Rose Cross Templars. These are people calling themselves Templars. Okay, their gang name is Templar, something Templars. Okay, they're not. This is a gang name. I'm not saying they're true Templars. I mean, by the Masonic code, under the right of perfection, anybody who has agreed to subjugate themselves to the Masonic constitutions are Templars. That makes every American a Templar by law. That's by law, folks. By law. By the ancient laws, by the rights of, by the Scottish delegates, by the Scottish rights. So these people are true Templars in my mind. They just call themselves that. Just like peace officers don't affect peace anymore. It's by their deeds. I'm not trying to defame Templars at all. True Templars are carriers of the Rose Cross. They believe in the orthodoxy of Christ and have perpetuated it. There are a lot of false Templars running around. There's a lot of false everybody running around. I think Revelations tells us that we're supposed to be looking at that. There's a lot of false militia groups running around.
Well, yeah, and that's the issue that we have right now is we're having some conflicting modalities operating within militia. And
right.
Some are, it's hard to tell, because, in one hand, we have them bringing light to a very serious issue. On the other hand, they're destroying evidence as they go along.
They're also, on the other hand, misportraying facts and targeting the only people doing anything. Because, this VOP stuff, that's not one person. There's a lot of people down there. So anybody who's pointing and not doing, in my opinion, are a provocateur. Anybody who isn't doing anything other than complaining is against me. Because, if you're doing nothing, what you aren't doing with me, you're doing against me. That's the way I see it. So, and I have come to believe, and this is why I have, I've already had experience with these whole organized militias and the lack of leadership, and or leadership that is unwilling to step forward, and or leadership that is preventing the reformation of the organized militias, and or sitting around defaming people are doing things. Those groups are provocateurs, just as they are when you have common law groups that are misguiding you to do things, such as what happens with Anna von Ritz and Bruce Duchette and a variety of other people, by the way. Those groups are those groups are CIA ops. So I'm going to tell you that, pursuant to my opinion, of the organized militias that have not come forward, because I haven't seen any except for this dude. Okay, these organized quote militias that have not come forward, militia men and women, because I'm speaking to the individual. If you're if you say you are a militiaman and you want to sit and complain about what someone is doing when you are doing nothing, yeah, you're a provocateur. You might as well be a shill or a tool because you're not productive. So what we did is to bypass those obfuscations, let's put it that way. You and I spoke about producing and creating a website or a Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And that Facebook page, I created it. It's not vetted because we're actually going to brand it and waiting for the codes to the mail. We did it a good way. But it's the Reconstitution of the Great Republic of America. If you put up the word Republic Reconstitution, if you put at Republic Reconstitution, you'll send us an email. And you'll send us something on Facebook. And that website I put up, there's no VOP there. Go use it. Why wouldn't the militias go and cooperate with the organizers we have for site to have sites looked at by these militia and show up and roll call there and say, I'm here, and because, like, for example, we need 8 people. We need 8 boots on the ground in a location. So give me 8 folks. If there's 8 militia people anywhere in the continental United States that wish to work with us to go to these we have like 40 other sites, folks, and no militia stepping forward because they're all pissed off at one guy in Arizona. To me, that's co-opting. To me, that's shills controlling the militias. To me, that's people obfuscating and obstructing the Reformation, and we're just going to work around them. We're just going to end around them. So anybody, and you don't even have, as far as we're concerned, you don't even have to be veterans anymore. They don't want to help? Fine. You don't want to help? Fine. Regular citizens have just as much right to do what the veterans said they want to do. These organized militia. You don't have to have a military background, folks, to be a militia. In fact, when the militia is called up, every man and woman of over 18 are considered to be in it. If it's an official call up, a full call up of reserves, every man and woman over 18 is considered active militia. That's the beauty of American Republic, which, by the way, our Constitution is the oldest republic. The republic that we created with our Constitution is the oldest republic in the world right now. So we are an amazing instrument of law and people. So any American who want to help create teams of 8 to go to these sites to investigate child trafficking, that don't want to deal with the quagmire of the militias, who are full of it, they're just full of ego. Contact me, contact us on Republic Reconstitution on Facebook, and we'll get you paired up with 7 other folks that are willing to do it. And you can go check these sites out for us. You can videotape them, because that's what we're doing. We're not trying to destroy. We're trying to go to these sites where we have the authority of the landholders. These are sites that people have told us that are on their land, on the border, that no one will go look at, that we want investigated, if only for to create video documentation of what's there, and to either remove them off the map or point them to ISIS or whoever we need to do. So since the militias don't want to proffer up, and we get groups saying they're going to show up and then they don't show up, and there's all this chest bumping and ego, which doesn't serve the American people, in my opinion, is a total violation of their oath of honor, besides their oath to the Constitution. We're organized militias to get their egos together. So screw them. That's my opinion. You know, just like I said, screw Alex Jones, we got you. Screw the militias, we got the American people proper. Because in my opinion, I think the militias are so heavily co-opted with ego and tools and shills and CIA operatives that they couldn't produce a battalion if you tried at this point in time. Couldn't even fill a battalion.
What is your opinion on the Oath Keepers, Lotus?
Well, I think that the Oath Keepers are very sincere. They've never put themselves in these little segmented groups of enclaves of ego. You know, they're there for the law. And the Oath Keepers existed a long time before. The Oath Keepers have been around for, 50, 60 years.
I personally was very pleased to see the Oath Keepers down there at the Arizona child trafficking campsite.
They care about the same stuff. I think that they do care, but they're not going to let it prevent them from complying with their oath. You know, like I said, these little enclaves of ego that people are calling militias, yeah, I'm not pleased with them. I have no need for them. If they can't step up and honor their oaths as veterans, I don't care who you are. You just stay out of my way then. Stay out of our way. Because we're going to get it done. And if you don't want to be party to getting it done, then shut up and go away. But definitely don't call yourself a militiaman and not report whenever there's a need for you to report and you have time and ability to report. So that's just how I see it. You know, if everyone was behaving like some of these militiamen are, nothing would ever get done in this country. We'd all be around playing tiddly. No, I'm being serious. And I'll call them out again, just as I did the other night. I'm going to tell you that the organized militias had their stuff together, Lavoie would still be alive.
Well,
so they
I thought I was making friends when I first moved here, and with self-proclaimed militia, local militia that have platforms like myself, and I ended up being a target, from this individual to discredit my platform and what I do for the children. I mean, if you're not going to at least speak out on behalf of the children, if you're just going to go, oh, well, you know, a lot of bad things happen down at the borders, you know.
This way, if you have more disdain for an individual who is allowed to operate outside of the law because you all failed to organize properly under the law, then you are concerned about child trafficking, then I have no need for you. Because, you know, I'm really tired of hearing people in the militia talking about this person did that and this person that, and they did this in Oregon. Well, let me tell you something. Y'all didn't organize proper in Oregon. That's why LaVoy's dead. That's a fact. So stop pointing at one guy and look at all of y'all, because all you organized militia should have taken that opportunity to realize what you should have done. And there are especially veterans that should have had an ability to access communications with ranks of active military. Okay, so if LaVoy died, yes, there are good acting quote militia, but I just think those people are just good acting men.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even put them in the category
of. They couldn't successfully discredit my platform. However, they tried to attack my character and you know, call me all kinds of slurs. The whole little network of witches. I won't say the word bitch. You know, but this is the petty. The really it just was so enormously petty that they, you know, oh well, your social media news network is not credible. You know, you were wrong. You know, so therefore you're not credible, and you know your character. You know, please give me a break. Give me a break, people. Grow up.
Well, I mean, there's perspective. There's a variety of different perspectives in everything that we see in life. We're all supposed to contribute to the greater paradigms so that we all have a greater understanding. We're not supposed to be targeting and going, "I'm right, you're wrong." So, a lot of times, both people are right.
I mean,
they just see it differently.
If you're more worried about being right all the time and being vindicated for being right, like 5 years ago on something that probably a lot of people could see. You're not the only one. You're not the only source.
Oh, well, here's the deal. We're not a social club. We actually are active in our belligerence against the crimes against humanity and the corruptions of our government. If you're a militiaman and you like to play on the weekends with your guns, and when you're called up and people show a need on news, and we have a situation where we need you to show up, and you don't show up, you're just a social club. You're not a militia. You're a social club of men with guns, okay, who like to call yourselves a militia and run around with rank. You're not the militia. You're not the honorable men and women that will make up the militia that will save this country from the horde.
And I so badly want to say the name of this platform, but I'm not going to. Because they mention my name like every other weekend when they're on one of their benders on their show.
It's a really important thing for people to evaluate whether you're just a social club or you're actually a functional, like we talked about. Are you an enclave of ego, which is a social club, or are you an active, organized group that serves a function for the people? That's actually your goal in life is to serve the people, not serve yourself with your egos and your chest bumping. If you are not service oriented towards the American people, and that is your primary goal, and that's what moves every decision you make, you are just a social group. I mean, I found that out when it came to organizing politics and stuff like that. There are social groups, and then there are such as the log cabin Republicans. The log cabin Republicans are gay people who vote Republican. Okay, predominantly. Okay, so they go hang out at bars. Do the log cabin Republicans ever get together and try to get votes together? No, they just hang out in bars. So they are a political social group. So in my mind, I now, having seen this in politicking, I now see the militias as social groups with names. Because if you're not functioning in the mandate that the term you're using implies, you're not the militia. So that's just me. Any more than you're a law enforcement officer if you punch 14-year-old girls in the face till they pass out. You're not law enforcement. See, the actions, remember, you'll know people by their deeds. So social groups are social groups. If you're inactive and you have no effect on the corruptions out there, you're just a bunch of people hanging around complaining and pretending like you're going to do something and you're not. So that's a social group to me. And that's why I stopped doing group organizations like that. I only work with people who are really invested to affect change. And if you're just someone running your mouth all the time and you are not an actor in what you speak, I got no use for you. I don't need a bunch of a couch potato revolutionary people who want to.
But we don't just have that. Let's talk about, we do have some very good men. We have some very good men that are stepping up to the challenge, and
I don't want them to be pigeonholed in these social groups, waiting for those quote leaders to tell them when it's bad, because it's bad and you're not being told it's bad. I want people to start removing themselves from these social groups and start operating as individuals, because that's what a republic is. Sui juris. We all walk our own law. Every American citizen, big C, of this republic has the right to organize under the militia banners. So anybody who wants to come in and help us sign an oath, because we're going to put up an oath. We're going to put up an oath that I wrote, derived out of the Ironclad Oath, and it basically says some very particular things, but it implies that you had to have never knowingly done anything against the United States. That's one part of it. So it's a very particular oath that was used during the Civil War to differentiate traitors from non-traitors. And here's the deal. You can lie when you sign that oath, but after you're under that oath, if you violate that oath, you become subject to the laws that are cited therein. So that's the beauty of oath. It's like a promise. We're all in this whole world.
I just want to say it's a beautiful thing to see some of these gentlemen that are stepping up. Like Lionel Anderson stepping up for the children and against human trafficking. Govinda Tidball, who is the founder of human2020.com. I mean, there's just it's a beautiful thing to witness when you see a good man come forth. Especially, oh my gosh, what did you think of Dennis Rodman crying on the news?
I've always loved Dennis Rodman, though, and you know what I love about Dennis Rodman? He has enough heart and spirit to ignore naysayers and to do what he knows to be right by his nomenon with goddess, because I'm pretty sure that he believes in goddess too, And I read an article about if a peace prize, which is, I don't even know that I respect that instrument anymore after what they did with Obama, but when they rescind it from Obama, then I might respect it again. But if a peace prize is doled out for this, I do believe it should go to Rodman. If it's given to Trump, I would hope that he would give it to Dennis Rodman, because Dennis Rodman is the one that has made this happen.
He's endured a lot of targeting for years.
Oh my gosh! It basically his when he did that, his career. He basically gave up his career. I mean, I remember how they defamed him. And but I really believe that Trump would not have been able to walk in as quickly as he has if it had not been for Rodman. Mm-hmm. Doing all the preliminary work over the years that he's done for him to establish a relationship and say, trust this guy, trust these people, So the legwork, which again, this is an example, the legwork that in most eyes should have been done or could have been done by like the State Department and previous administrations, they're up there posturing in their legal ego enclaves, right? Their social clubs, their parties. And instead of doing the legwork to facilitate peace in the world, because they benefit from divisiveness and war and all this stuff. So Dennis Rodman, as an American, had no motive of personal lucre. He had nothing except to make the world a better place for everybody. And I think he made that clear when he was on the news. That's where we're at. Everyone needs to throw these social clubs to the side.
But really, where we're at a point, Lotus, where we're actually seeing individuals systematically being targeted and oppressed for their just wanting to do the right thing, wanting to.
Right. I believe that if someone not as famous as Dennis Rodman had done what he did, he probably wouldn't have survived. They probably would have killed him to prevent anything from moving forward of a positive nature when it comes to the greater, law of the realm, the world being a safer place for everybody. And I applaud North and South Korea. I've never known that these people were divided before I was born. And I think that there were families that were divided just as it was under Germany. I think the reunification of Korea is an incredible event in our history. I think that anybody who is, and this speaks to the propaganda of the fascist regime controlling the media. I mean, in that, if anybody other than Trump were doing this, the dude would have had roses thrown at his feet. Okay? And I don't know when people are going to get the fact that he's the manner he is because he knows it works. I read an article where he said, I didn't want to insult the guy, but I had to because that's just what he made me do. He's like, yeah, I had to. He knew that it's a game of who's got, it's all chest bumping, but this is the real kind of chest bumping. This is chest bumping when you're willing to act and you have the power to. So I really was impressed with him, but then I've always respected Dennis Rodman and his efforts over there. I didn't understand them, but I don't have to. They never did anything wrong to him is the way I always saw it. I don't have to hate people that haven't done anything to me. But I tell you what, if I have anybody else tell me I don't care about Mexican babies, I'm probably gonna flip my lid on them. If you don't care about Mexican babies, you don't care about babies. Okay, The word there is no nationality to be put in front of the word baby. Babies have no nationality, folks. They are children of God. Period. I don't care what nation, which is an overlay of corporatism and banking and military overlay, a child has no nationality when they're incarnated in this world. It's just the corrupt, despotic states of men that oppress that title on them. So if you're not for all babies not being trafficked, you're not Christian. That's my opinion. That's the orthodoxy of Christendom. Jesus was very, very particular in his citations of what people who hurt children are. So, and he didn't say the children of Israel. He didn't say the children of Mesopotamia. He didn't say the children of this or that. He said children, period. All children. So if people can't set aside, and this is where we are out in the world, though. This is when you're going to start realizing how innately reprobate people are in their heart by understanding that if you perceived that every child in the world had a particular right to not be oppressed into despotism, we wouldn't have, and you really believed that was a right of every child in this world, everything that is now of a divisive nature would no longer be tolerated in your mindset. And you'd be like, we're done. So if everybody in the world said, we're done with you oppressing and harming children, period, just end of story, just put a period after that. Imagine if you stopped allowing all those things which harm children, period, how much divisiveness and the ugliness and the evil of the world would go away. Because if you don't treat your children right, then the adults aren't going to be treated right. This is what I don't understand either. People think you're going to treat children with inequity, but you think as an adult you're going to get equity. That's an impossibility in law, folks. If you start off in the law of the realm as subjugated to the despotism of crazy people in their little egos of enclaves of ego, where they shoot at each other and chest bump and argue, oh, who's the king of the world? If you surrender to that, you will never, ever be free. Ever. Because when is it that you've achieved freedom from that? Never. You never will. So this is a central issue of the rights of all men from the time they are incarnated into the world, which is when you are a baby with no nationality. So I don't care if you're a Canadian baby, a Mexican baby, a Chinese baby. As far as I'm concerned, all babies should be given asylum. If mothers come in tow, the children should never be separated. If dad comes in tow, I'm sorry, guys are a little obnoxious. They tend to be violent, especially in divisive. Put all the men in one area. Let them fight amongst themselves over there and keep the babies and the mothers out of it. If that's what it has to be. But children should never be separated from their mother. That is the last thing, and I'm not undermining the the rights of fathers. I'm not trying to do that. I'm talking about in times of mass migration and stuff like that, where you have, which the worst thing about the whole thing about in Mexico is that the previous administration created everything that's happening down there by the running of guns into Mexico and and in order to facilitate, crime bosses. Before Obama, Mexico wasn't organized like that, folks. They didn't have crime bosses that ran entire states. They didn't have that. That's Obama. Obama did his State Department. His people did that. So they're sitting there going, I don't care about Mexican babies. Well, guess what? You better hope that those people in Mexico never sue the United States, because they could. They could. You unlawfully interfered with a sovereign nation, and they facilitated and perpetuated criminal activity within them. That's what Obama did. That's what the gun running, the Fast and Furious was all about. They even talk about that was the point of Fast and Furious, to consolidate the gang activity into one gang they think they can control. You think a gang that controls this whole state of Mexico or something like that, you think that's not actually a foreign force? And they have guns, by the way. We gave them to them. This guy basically created an army that could invade us from the south. Guess what's coming over the border, folks? The people he made. But don't mind those Mexican babies. They're not your problem. Okay. It's all contrived. And so America needs to wake up, because, I got upset on a thread the other day. Not upset, really. I was just like, I got a little irked, because I had to quote Jeremiah Wright, in his, America, your chickens have come home to roost. And they're coming home to roost in all ways. The law that we've been evolving is coming home, is going to be cured. But we're also going to have to pay for what we've allowed to fester all over the world while we cured that. And there's a lot of problems that were created by those types of activities. A lot of things are going to be solved by them too, but it's the balance of justice, right? But there are people out there that through the corruptions within the states and the United States, we facilitated a need for people to have to leave their homeland. And then you want to say you don't care about the babies. Some dude online called them a cockroach. Called a baby a cockroach. I'm like, what is wrong with you?
Oh my God.
Babies aren't cockroaches. I don't care about Mexican roaches. I was like, what is wrong with you?
Oh,
that's reprobate. That is reprobate. So it's real simple. You guys want to know where people lie? Start talking about how important it is to protect all babies. And watch the demons and the lawlessness that's sitting and rooted in the hearts of men and women come out. It'll be clear to you as day who you're talking to. And that's why, I'm lambasting anybody whose ego is more important than the lives of these children, these Mexican babies. It's repugnant. It's definitely repugnant as an American and a Christian to hear that. I have never thought to personify a child as a roach. That's repugnant. That's just beyond my comprehension, to be so callous.
I heard something really disturbing this week, and I haven't researched it yet. I don't have the stomach to yet. But apparently these facilities where they're holding the children, where they refused Senator, I forget what his last name is.
Reagan, that's what I know. I was like, wow, you're way down there.
From Florida, the senator that came out and flew out to Texas from Florida to go into the Walmart facility. Apparently there's nuclear weapons in these Walmarts.
How is that possible?
As well as children and women and children.
Well, what you probably have is that the coup just decided to repurpose them. Because you remember correctly. Allegedly. Right. Well, let's put it this way. Like I said, when that dude went down there, he basically proved a conspiracy theory that they've been telling us didn't exist for the last 10 years. Okay, he proved it. So I'm going to tell you that those Walmarts probably have a lot of things in them, because they were hoping on a totally different scenario if Hillary won. Okay? And her little coup. her little lot. And so now they're repurposing these locations. From my understanding, all of these Walmarts that are being used are connected by tunnels. Again, these people, how are you even going to track? Okay, let's just think about this. 1,000 undocumented, and that's the important, the undocumented people come across the border. Who's documenting them? Who's documenting the babies? If there's 600 babies in those undocumented people and they get removed, who's making sure those babies go anywhere? They're undocumented. Who's going to track where they go? We don't have a way to document where they went. You guys assuming that the people that are doing this record, I'm not talking bad about, because I know that the Border Patrol hands them over. They're just, they're like pass-through entities, right? We're talking about these private agencies that are paid by the states to house these children that are undocumented, can't be tracked. Their parents are going to get sifted through the prison industrial complex, have no authority to find out where the kids are. They may get deported back to Mexico. Where'd the kid go? Why is it these kids aren't being immediately turned back over to the Mexican authorities? We don't have any jurisdiction over them whatsoever. And if we do, it's under the auspices of amnesty. How are you going to tort a child that you just took an amnesty by ripping him away from his mother? I mean, ripping a child away from a mother is a immoral act.
Turn around and say that you're going to campaign to legislate new laws to stop this travesty that's occurring under Trump.
People just don't get the degree
Lotus, you and I talk daily. We talk all the time. Actually, I talk to you more than I talk to some of my closest friends. You and I have been talking about these illegal legislation of these bills and laws passed by the bar, that are legislated by the bar, and then
to traffic children
with the intent to traffic children. We've been talking. I mean, I talked about this in 2016, and I told everybody. You cannot pass SB 18. You cannot allow it to pass because it will be devastating to undocumented children, women and children. Well, I mean, and I applaud. I don't worry so much for the men because men have an ability to take care of themselves more so than a child and a woman who's diminutive in size. And so to me, this is I think it's a horrible. It's a morally irreprehensible policy, and it's whatever you allow to happen to these babies that come from Mexico. I promise you, under the law, a law of equity, they can't by one route treat a Mexican. They can't by law treat a Mexican different than an American child. They just can't, folks. I hate to break it to you. That's what our Constitution demands that. So whatever they're doing to these babies in Mexico, that's on the face. It's showing you what they do to American children every day. And they do. They take children all the time without cause, without due process. They seize children on presumptions of criminality. I mean, for an example, okay, what are some of the places you can raise funds? I can't think of one. But I was trying to raise funds for Clay on one of these fundraising sites. And I got a letter from the agency or the corporation or whatever it is telling me that they were removing my profile because my son had been engaged in criminal activity. It's 3. So they assume, so the attorneys are even promoting, this is what attorneys, the legal minds are saying. Children are criminals because they're with parents that are committing crimes. Now, under the law, they can't make that assumption for an adult, but they're starting to, right? Guilt by association. I happen to have met I noticed this, a change in, under Obama. You know what they were doing? They were actually putting women in prison who let their husband or boyfriend borrow the car while they're at work. Let's say you're at work, you're a woman, you're 8 to 5, you're at work, it's 2 o'clock, you get home, cops are waiting for you because your boyfriend or your husband used the car in a crime. They arrest you too and put you in prison for the same crime. Literally, that happened. I've talked to women that happened to. So now, if they can find one person in your family that's a criminal, that's blood debt. See, that's blood debt. That's what they're doing. One person in your family is a criminal, you're all criminals. That's called blood debt, folks. That's a crime under the Constitution. Well,
they do that.
That's what and what I talk about what I talk about in some of these interviews that I've done in the past is I talk about the targeting of the children that age out of the system. They are the targeted individuals. The definition of targeted individuals.
Well, I mean, the fact that a treasury crime, that being addicted to a drug is a treasury crime, not like actually participating in drugs usage, but being an addict. It specifically states that being an addict of a drug is a treasury crime. Okay. How about you make when a cop or a sheriff or a judge violates the statutes a crime? Oh, wait, it is. It is. And guess what? They're subject to the statute and supposed to be held that criminality. We're not supposed to. So the bar has been flipped. Because the interesting thing about, if you read the Judicial Act of 1789, you will find out that the Article 3 courts are barred from the common law. They have no jurisdiction in the common law. None. So if they have no jurisdiction in the common law pursuant to the de jure grant of law and the Judicial Act, how is it that they're getting a hold of men and women? Under statute. Okay. That's why the little fiction had to be created. Because they had to coup the common law with the Article 3 courts in de facto. Actually, in just outright illegitimacy now. Because they have no jurisdiction over the rights of men in the common law. So explain to me how the Supreme Court of the United States, which is an Article 3 court, is able to amend, twist, or torn the common law as defined in the Constitution, such as you shall not aliene the right to bear arms. They have no authority pursuant to the Judicial Act to have anything to say about that. So how have they been allowed to slowly erode those rights? Because they're in coup, folks. They're in coup. The Supreme Court of the United States is not a Article 1 court. It is an Article 3 court. It has no jurisdiction in the common law. So how are they making judgments based upon the rights of us that shall not be aliened? See, when you know the law, it's clear the greater paradigm of the lies and the criminality of what's being oppressed upon people, which, by the way, under military code of justice. And that's why if you've, this military stuff going on with these veterans and stuff, the real men and women of America that follow the orthodox tenets of the Rose Cross need to show up and save the babies, because that's our destiny. That's our destiny. That's what we were put on this earth to do. That is our path. That is the purpose of this great republic. To rid the world of Babylonian slave traders who harm babies. So show up. Show up. Stand up.
Yep. Lotus, talk about your page that you started and where people can find it.
On Facebook, it's under the Reconstitution of the Great Republic. It's got the @ of Republic Reconstitution, because that's what we're doing. We're taking the de facto Constitution and the de jure Constitution, and we're going to merge them under the law, which is where they're meant to be. We're going to reunify, reconstitute them.
Very quickly, I do want to touch on Cemex. Now, we know that they're a major contributor to the Clinton Foundation, but not only that, can you speak to their involvement in regards to the child trafficking down at our borders in Arizona?
I only know of what is reported, and you got to remember, there's a lot of stuff that's being floated about with undefined origins as to how the people got the information. So there, some of the sources of this information are probably of an illegal nature. I don't know about necessarily unlawful, but it's hacking and stuff. But again, it's there. It's in the public domain. The net is public domain. I mean, really, the government says it is. So if it's public domain and I hack your stuff, and then you're gonna get found out. But I know that there's some really creepy stuff about how they're really big into concrete, and that they're concerned that a lot of people don't know about Rome is they used to put blood in concrete. as a form of sacrifice in their Baal, in their worship to Moloch and Baal and all that stuff. So, people are talking about this creepily enough, it may end up being that, which I'm not saying it is. This is stuff that's being floated in front of me, that this organization literally is trafficking in babies so they can create blood additives for the concrete that they're selling to these Illuminatis. And it's that, and it seems just bizarre and extreme, but in consideration of all the bizarre, extreme stuff that people are floating and calling conspiracy theory, basically all coming true, I'm going to say that I'm going to leave it open as a possibility. And, they're going to be found out one way or the other. I can tell you they're probably I know that they're under investigation already. That I do know. For various things, from what I understand, they're already under investigation. And like I said, there are good people everywhere, folks. There are people doing their job. The problem is they're being targeted and oppressed by the people who are bad. Like every time someone tries to do something good, they target them in a personal manner. I love the fact that I feel bad for Giuliani, but I know he's used to it. But they can't defame him as an attorney, so they have to insult his. They want to attack him with infidelity. And I don't know if you've heard about that. So that's when they've lost. They have no other way to target you. But and then this one, it's not even like a Me Too hashtag. It's like a willful. I think it's a proclamation of a willful affair with the married woman. Okay, there's no like Me Too there, right? So they're just impugning his character to try to, to defame him in what he says, and that's just what they do. They insult you, they insert your person whenever they can, whenever they have no facts. Whenever you have no facts, you insult people. That's actually called the Delphi method. It's actually a form of methodology. Where you control groups by singling out one person who is actually saying, "Hey, I don't like the way you're doing it," and they'll turn the whole group against the one individual. We saw that all over the place in Occupy. In Occupy, we saw that bad. It's called the Delphi method, and it's a form of manipulation of organizations and group structures. And they actually teach that, by the way, to people in our government, the Delphi method. And so it's a Delphi method of insulting, what is it? Kill the messenger, They're killing the messenger. And so anyone where you're seeing them killing the messenger, even in these suicides, these ropes hanging from handles and the doorknobs and stuff, someone apparently vetted that this last one, this young man, wasn't so young, but I can't remember his name, but that he had actually tweeted like 2 or 3 days ago, or 2 days before his death, that I have information about the Clinton Foundation, blah, blah. He tweeted this on his Twitter page. 2 days later, he's dead. Yeah. So they're killing the messengers because
we also witnessed Kate Spade as well. She was a fashion designer who she became famous for creating a line of bags for women. And she's also dead.
Well, and that's the weird thing about that is she wasn't even known as a fashion designer anymore, and suddenly she was all over the news. And that should tell you right there that somebody in the news wants everyone to remember that death. Okay, there's a lot of people whose deaths they're reporting that they shouldn't be reporting. They would not